Let's move on to project management. I'm sure you must have questions. What is project management? We saw what a project is and the difference between a project and operations. Project management is nothing but the application of processes and methods. It involves skills and experience to achieve the objectives of a unique project, whatever the project you are working on. Once you start applying that knowledge, that particular process is called project management. Possessing that knowledge is not enough. You may be PMP certified, aspiring to become PMP certified, or have 10 to 15 years of experience and have gained significant knowledge over time. But if you are not applying that knowledge, then it is of no use. That is where project management comes into the picture because it provides a framework to apply that knowledge effectively. This, in turn, brings many benefits, which we will discuss soon. Project management helps in properly carrying out all processes involved, starting from conception to completion. Any project you undertake, whether developing a product for the market or manufacturing a new product, requires conceptualizing the idea. You may conduct hypothesis testing, generate ideas, and finalize concepts. This phase is about conceptualizing the product and coming up with ideas. From the moment you start until the successful completion of the project, various activities are carried out through multiple processes. This requires understanding how to perform project management. Once you start applying that knowledge, the entire process becomes project management. There are 6 key aspects of project management. You may have heard of the 6 Ps of presentation. Similarly, there are 6 Ps of project management. Proper planning is crucial. Many will agree that planning is one of the most important stages of a project. Planning can be done in advance for the entire project, or it can be done in an adaptive manner. Planning is also conducted using a rolling wave approach. There are different ways to plan. Traditionally, people planned everything in advance and stuck to it. However, with agile methodologies and frequent project changes, adaptive planning has become more relevant. It is essential to have a balance between adaptive and upfront planning. This mix is crucial. Many people believe planning is a waste of time, but proper planning actually saves time when executing a project. Ensure a well-defined plan is in place and that all stakeholders are aware of it. It should be well communicated, thoroughly reviewed, and approved by the sponsor and key stakeholders. This will help prevent poor performance. With a plan, you can monitor and control project activities effectively. Without a plan, there is nothing to monitor. That is why it is critical for a project manager to ensure a plan is available for the project they are managing. Let's move ahead and discuss another important aspect of project management. Many times, you may have heard the term constraint in projects. Traditionally, we talked about 4 constraints. It started with the triple constraint, and now we discuss 4 constraints. However, I add a few more. We will talk about those later, but for now, let's focus on these 4 constraints that you see here now. What is constraint? Constraint is nothing, but if you change one thing, at least one other thing will get affected. So, for example, time. As we saw just now, that project has a fixed start and a fixed end, so there is some duration through which we execute that project. But what about the duration if it gets affected? If the duration has been reduced suddenly, what will happen? If there is a change in time or schedule, obviously at least one other constraint of the project will get affected. Cost might go up because you have to put more people, or your quality will get affected because now we have less time to deliver more. Or, you will not be able to complete all the scope which has been agreed upon with your customer. So, constraint is nothing but if one constraint changes, then at least one other will get affected. We started with these 4 constraints, triple constraints initially, and then we added one more. Time, scope, and cost were there, with quality added as well. But if you actually see, there are a few other constraints as well on the project, which we should be aware of, and that's nothing but the expectations. If you see the project management diamond, we started with triple constraints on a project, and now we talk about a diamond. I would also prefer to add a few more here. So, what are the things that could be constraints? Risk is also a constraint. For example, if your budget is reduced and the scope items remain the same, then obviously, risk will go up because you will not have the budget left to take care of the risk on the project. So risk is another constraint that we talk about. Apart from that, resources are also a constraint. If you don't get enough resources to work on the project, then obviously, you may not be able to complete all the scope items, or you may not be able to work efficiently in order to achieve your project within schedule. So resources could be another constraint as well. We can look at time, cost, quality, scope, risk, and I also consider customer satisfaction as a constraint. If customer satisfaction is not achieved, you will not be able to deliver the project within schedule and within budget. So it's very important for us to also make sure that we achieve customer satisfaction. If any of these constraints are not met, then obviously, your customers will not be happy. Therefore, it's important to also look at customer satisfaction as one of the constraints. So if you ask me how effective the project manager is, I would judge based on how effectively the project manager is managing the constraints of the project, and based on that, the effectiveness of the project manager would easily be determined. Alright, so with this now let's move on to the advantages of project management. There are certain advantages of project management, and we'll talk about some of them. To begin with, when you do project management in a proper way, with proper planning, following the proper phases, and adhering to the right processes, you will certainly gain these advantages. The first one is better efficiency. When you use the proper framework of project management, you will be able to produce outcomes with greater efficiency. That means you will know how to effectively use project resources and how to optimally utilize them to achieve better and greater outcomes. Your efficiency will certainly increase because you have planned properly, especially for resource utilization. This is a key part of project management. So, in turn, project management will help enhance efficiency. For example, if it is a construction project and you are using certain machinery, but you do not have a plan in place to utilize them properly, deciding when, how, and how much to use, then you will not be able to use them optimally. However, with a better plan and effective execution, you can ensure that these machines are used efficiently. This applies to the overall project as well. A well-executed project management approach will certainly lead to better efficiency. It will also help improve customer satisfaction. As I mentioned earlier, if you can effectively manage project constraints, the customer will be satisfied. Imagine I am a project manager. If I manage everything effectively, ensuring the scope is met, delivering what the customer wants on schedule, maintaining quality, and staying within budget, then the customer will be happy. If I handle all these constraints well, customer satisfaction will be a natural outcome. Ultimately, customers are happy when they receive what they expect, on time, within budget, and with risks effectively managed. Project management also enhances efficacy. Efficacy relates to effectiveness in applying project management principles and processes. If you follow these correctly, you will be able to work efficiently and effectively on the project. So, by applying better project management, leveraging knowledge, skills, processes, and principles, you can enhance your overall effectiveness. Effectiveness means being able to execute tasks efficiently because you have a structured framework, a well-prepared plan, and a clear understanding of how to monitor budgets and other aspects of the project. When you create a proper plan and monitor your budget effectively, your overall effectiveness in managing the project will significantly improve. You're using certain tools for that, and you are tracking the actual expenses. You're also using certain tools, like, for example, the Cost Performance Index, the Schedule Performance Index, etc., in order to take preventive and corrective decisions based on how your indexes are performing. So, obviously, your effectiveness in executing the project will also improve. Better teamwork is achieved because you have a framework in place, allowing you to mobilize resources effectively. You'll be able to achieve the goal of the project because, with everything documented, you can align the goals of each team member with the ultimate goal of the project. For instance, if the project's goal is to manufacture a car costing less than ₹1,00,000, you will be able to align the objectives of every team member working on that project with that ultimate vision. As a result, teamwork will improve, leading to a greater competitive advantage. The biggest advantage of effective project management is that you will be able to produce what you are developing much earlier than your competition because you are controlling your activities efficiently. This will certainly give you a competitive edge. If you reach the market early, you will be able to tap into it sooner. Take, for example, research and development projects. These projects often span multiple years, but the key is how to complete them earlier by effectively using project management practices. By doing so, you can launch a product in the shortest possible time and gain the benefits of being early in the market. For this, project management practices will play a crucial role. Service expansion becomes easier as well. You will be able to extend your services into various areas through project management. Increased flexibility is another benefit. With better planning, you will have proper buffers in place and be able to incorporate flexibility into your plans. This means that if any changes occur, you will be able to accommodate them. Offering this flexibility to customers will enhance your service quality. Risk management will also be significantly improved. You will have a risk register, risk owners, qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, and the ability to prioritize risks. You will be able to calculate the monetary value of risks and allocate budgets accordingly. You can determine risk response strategies, whether to transfer, avoid, or accept a risk, etc. This enables effective risk management. Quality will also be enhanced. With project management, the outcome, whether a product, a result, or a process, will be aligned with customer expectations. Most importantly, it will be fit for purpose. Whatever the purpose for which the outcome is designed, project management ensures that it meets the quality expectations of the customers. So from there, we now move on to the next important part, which is understanding what skills are required for a project manager. If project managers have to effectively implement the project management processes, what are some of the skills that the project manager should possess? The most important one, definitely, is communication. Over 90% of the time, you'll find a project manager communicating through some tools. It could be just by sending emails, it could be push communication, pull communication, or the latest reports. It could also be attending meetings, communicating about risks, prioritization, negotiating, and, of course, collaborating with stakeholders. So, communication is certainly a very important skill that is required in a project manager. Another crucial skill is leadership. Whichever structure your organization follows, whether it is a matrix structure, a typical hierarchical structure, or a functional structure, leadership is definitely required. Even your team members, who are working on your project with you, whether they report to you or not, still require leadership. Leadership doesn't mean that you need to have direct reports to be considered a leader. Everyone can be a leader in their own way because leadership is about influencing others. You need to inspire them to perform and do their job effectively. To achieve that, strong leadership is necessary. You need to direct and ensure that everyone's vision is ultimately aligned with the product vision or the project vision that you are working on. Team management is also important. A project manager should be a people person, able to empathize with the team effectively and understand their needs. These days, we emphasize servant leadership, expecting project managers to act as servant leaders to their teams. This means that whatever the team needs, if it is essential, the project manager should be the one supporting the team by securing necessary resources at the right time. Negotiation skills are also very important because project managers frequently negotiate with stakeholders, customers, and team members. It's crucial to have strong negotiation skills to create win-win situations. You shouldn't be too submissive or too aggressive, you need to be assertive. Whatever decisions you make should help and support the achievement of project goals and objectives. Another critical aspect is personal organization. As a project manager, you should understand yourself well and possess emotional intelligence. You should be able to manage risks effectively and be a good risk manager. These skills are essential from both a soft skills perspective and a technical, hard skills perspective. From a technical standpoint, having relevant domain knowledge and technological expertise can be an added advantage. While it may not be mandatory, having relevant domain and technology knowledge will certainly give you an edge over others when discussing issues, solving problems, and interacting with stakeholders. Let's quickly go over the various phases involved in a project. Whenever we start a project, we need to execute it in a structured way. To bring in that structure, we rely on project management phases. We begin with initiation activities. Once those are clear, we move on to planning. After the plan is approved, we start working on executing it. During the execution, it is important to continuously monitor and control the process. Once all key activities are completed, we then close the project phase. These are the typical phases, but the specific phases might differ depending on the domain you're working in. For example, if you are in research and development, your project phases might look different. Similarly, if you're working in software, your phases might differ as well. A typical software development life cycle, SDLC, starts with initiation, followed by requirements gathering, then design. Before the design phase, we conduct an analysis, and after design, we proceed with coding, testing, and so on. In an agile environment, the phases are different. Agile works in an iterative and incremental fashion. You might follow Scrum or another scaled agile framework. The phases in agile could vary, and that's completely fine, as long as everyone in your team or organization agrees on the phases. What's most important is that the entire team is aligned. It's essential to define and agree on the phases and milestones. For example, in the initiation phase, key decisions are made. This is where we decide which project to undertake and carry out the initial activities. We'll also discuss some of these activities in more detail during the planning phase. In essence, the initiation phase involves creating a plan, not just from the perspective of milestones but also considering how we'll manage the budget and schedule. This ensures everything stays on track as the project progresses. We take all of that into account and then start executing. This is where we break down the scope items into tasks, and then we begin working on those tasks. After that, we move into the monitoring and controlling phase, where we compare the current progress with the plan we created. For example, if it's a one-year project and we are already in the third month, we compare the progress with where we should ideally be by that point. If there's a gap, we identify it and take corrective actions. The closing phase is when we finalize the project activities we've been working on. Some activities may involve vendors or third parties. We identify everything that needs to be closed and also handle formal contract closure and related tasks. Now, let's go through each of these phases, starting with the initiation phase, and identify some of the key activities. In the initiation phase, the first thing to focus on is a well-defined scope statement. It's crucial to understand what you are working on. For example, if you are working on a project to digitize customer experience, such as converting a bank's paper forms into a digital format, you need to define the scope clearly. You're aiming to provide a digital experience to the customer, moving toward a paperless environment, and leveraging current technology. Next, you need to understand the scope of the project. Is it just digitizing loan application forms, or are there other forms involved? Identifying the scope clearly will guide you through the project. You also need to identify the stakeholders. If it's a multinational bank, the stakeholders will vary compared to a smaller bank operating within a single country. Based on the scope and the scale of the project, whether it's regional, national, or global, you can then start preparing the stakeholder list. Once the scope is clear, ensure resource availability. If the project is global but you're piloting it in a specific region first, you'll need to plan resources accordingly. Another important aspect in the initiation phase is defining the project goal. Goals should be smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. These goals should not only be smart but also clear. It's also important that the goals are collaborative, meaning they should involve everyone who is part of the project. It's important that people can relate to and understand the goal, ensuring it's aligned with the overall vision. We should be able to get along with everyone. All the team members need to have clear, specific, and measurable emotional goals. Let's take a couple of examples to help relate to this. There are certain examples here that are quite specific. For instance, one goal could be to increase the net income by 10% by the end of the third quarter in 2018. By having this goal, I would have a better understanding of what the expectation is. This goal clearly states that we have to focus on increasing the net income by 10%, and it specifies the deadline, the third quarter of 2018. Being specific like this helps everyone understand the target and timeline. Another example could be to decrease the auto claims cycle time from an average of 12 days to 8 days by 31st March 2019. This goal is clear as well because it defines exactly what we want to achieve and by when. If a goal is clear and specific, it becomes easier to work toward. For example, if I know that I have to increase income by 10%, I believe this will motivate people to collaborate and work toward achieving that goal. There's a clear target, and everyone can relate to it. The goal should also be limited in both scope and duration. In the auto claims example, the scope is clear: reduce the cycle time. There's also a set deadline, which is important. It's also important for the goal to be emotionally engaging. People should feel a connection to the goal, and this emotional drive will help them work with energy and passion. This is critical for motivating employees to give their best. Large, complex goals should be broken down into smaller, more manageable ones. For example, digitizing the entire banking experience is a huge vision. But if we break it down into smaller steps, like digitizing the customer experience for retail banking, it becomes much more achievable. We could start by using tablets or computers in branches to help customers fill out forms, which could later be expanded to online convenience. Refining and adjusting goals is also crucial. If a goal needs to be changed or refined, it should be possible to do so. A rigid goal that can't be modified is much harder to achieve. In terms of planning, we talked about defining the scope and setting goals clearly. Once we have the initiation activities and the scope is defined, we can move into the planning phase. This is where we agree on exactly what we want to achieve and set deadlines. Once everything is documented in a plan, we move into the execution phase. This is where your team comes into play, as it's time to start working on the tasks that have been agreed upon. The task will be assigned to the resources, who will then start executing those tasks. Sometimes, we may need to reach out to other teams within the organization, such as the procurement, finance, or human resources teams. This is necessary because, for example, if I need to procure something for the project, I can contact the procurement or finance teams to help with that process. In a digital project, I might need to onboard new vendors, as it could be a new area for me, and I may not have the required expertise. For example, if we need to explore new technology, like Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud, or even Microsoft Azure, I will need to engage the procurement team to help procure the required resources. As a project manager, my role is to direct the team and manage the execution of tasks effectively through continuous monitoring. This is where a tracking system, such as MS Project, Clarity, or even a simple Excel sheet, becomes important. If it's an agile project, Tools like Jira or Rally can also be used for tracking. The tools help in continuous tracking, which is crucial for monitoring the project's progress on an ongoing basis. Additionally, it is important to organize status meetings. These can be held weekly with the team or at the program or portfolio level on a fortnightly basis. In the beginning, the frequency of meetings might be higher, but it can decrease over time as the project progresses. We will also need to update the project schedule based on progress and modify the plan if necessary. It's essential that the plan remains flexible so it can be adjusted according to the current situation. Sometimes, you may also need to engage stakeholders and obtain approvals to modify your plans or move to the next phase. Next, during the controlling phase, we focus on measuring the project's performance. Key performance indicators, KPIs, will help assess whether we are close to achieving our project objectives. For example, in a retail banking digitization project, we might track whether the 5 or 10 forms identified for digitization have been completed. We also need to ensure that the quality standards for deliverables are met. In IT projects, this includes identifying defects during the development cycle, whether in development, testing, or user acceptance testing. Cost tracking is also essential, and techniques like earned value management, EVM, can be used to track the project's cost and schedule performance. You can track metrics like Schedule Performance Index, SPI, and Cost Performance Index, CPI, to help manage costs and schedules effectively. Additionally, effort tracking will allow us to see how much effort the team has committed versus what has been actually booked for the project. The overall performance of the project needs to be monitored as well, focusing on budget, schedule, risks, and issue handling. These aspects are important when measuring and monitoring KPIs. Finally, we move to the closing phase. In this phase, we ensure that what was produced meets the customer's expectations and has been verified and accepted. Each requirement will have some acceptance criteria, and we need to make sure the customer is involved in the verification process. Once it is verified, we can proceed to close the project. Additionally, we need to ensure that any contracts with vendors are closed according to the agreed terms. Other activities involved in project closure include completing documentation and arranging for the post-implementation review, PIR. These activities are just a few examples of what happens during project closure. These are high-level activities, but throughout each phase, many processes are involved. We will go through them at a high level today. As you all aim to become certified project managers by successfully completing your PMP certification, it's essential to understand the knowledge areas and processes outlined in the PMBOK Guide, which is the official guide published by the PMI.